Part 36. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 351. Zhang Chanyu suspected that she was hallucinating. Why did this little kid agree now? Gu Swiding noticed something and glanced at Yi Chang, who was coiled around Qingbao's wrist. I think if Qingbao can agree, Yi Chang will definitely be lobbying for it. However, he himself was actually inclined to let Qingbao become Zhang Chanyu's disciple, so he didn't care about his favoritism. Happiness came so quickly, Zhang Chanyu was stunned for a moment before she realized, I don't have any rules here, all Qingbao has to do is kowtow to me 3 times. Under Gu Swiding's guidance, Qingbao knelt down towards Zhang Chanyu's body and kowtowed 3 times awkwardly. There is no other way. He is wearing too much and looks like a ball. Kowtowing is really a difficult move for him. Fortunately, he did a pretty good job in the end. Zhang Chanyu was overjoyed and said, Okay, from today on, Qingbao, you are my disciple, Zhang Chanyu. From now on, master, I will protect you. The first time she became a master, Zhang Chanyu was a little too excited and acted very unstable. Come here, good disciple, I will teach you the boundary beads of this small space. The world pearl has been refined by her and can be passed directly to Qingbao. After getting the Qingbao, I understood how to use it. Subsequently, Zhang Chanyu erased the mark on her Qinqin ring, took it into her hand and handed it to Qingbao. Put the ring on. Qingbao obediently obeyed. At this time, Zhang Chanyu's spirit had reached its extreme, almost becoming transparent. Good disciple, I am too tired to be your teacher, let me practice in the ring for a while, I will come out to teach you after a while. After Zhang Chanyu finished speaking, she sank into the ring. The ring is on Qingbao's body and is in constant contact with him. The Zhang Chanyu living in the ring is naturally nourished. Qingbao touched the ring, and Zhang Chanyu's warning came from inside the ring, Qingbao, hide the ring. At the same time, the method was passed on to him. Qingbao did as he was told. This time falling into a small space, Qingbao can be said to be a big winner and gain a huge harvest. However, Gu Swiding and Yi Chang were only happy for him, Yuan Bao and Nian Nian were only novel, and Qingbao himself was still ignorant and had no idea what the things he had harvested meant. Okay, Qingbao, send us out. Your mother may be anxious. Gu Swiding touched Qingbao's head. The next moment, several people in the stone room appeared outside. Shen Yizi, who was staying on the spot, rushed forward in surprise, hugged Qingbao and the others into his arms, and kissed each other, which made Gu Swiding look on and felt very uncomfortable. Zhizi only looked at the child and didn't even look at him. Qingbao, where have you been, are you okay? Qingbao opened his mouth to tell her about the small space, but Gu Swiding stopped him. He picked up Qingbao and glanced at Zhang Lingch, who was standing not far away. If he saw it correctly, Zhizi was standing with him just now. Zhizi, let's talk about it when we go back. Okay, let's go home. Shen Yizi took out the sky boat and threw it into the air. The sky boat grew bigger and floated half a person's height above the ground. Several people got on the boat one after another. Shen Yizi greeted Zhang Lingch, Master. Luo Yao Yao snorted dissatisfiedly, Yizi, who are you calling? A good disciple actually had to give half of it to others, which made him very unhappy. Although he was the one who came later, Zhang Lingch should be the one who was unhappy. Shen Yizi raised his forehead and accidentally worshipped 2 masters, and neither of them refused to be small. What should be done with this? Zhang Lingch ignored Luo Yao Yao's tit-for-tat look and drove Xiao Lu onto the boat. Shi Shiren got off its back and walked into the hall of the cabin. Xiao Lu followed him step by step with his 3 little heads held high. Zhang Lingch found a seat and sat down, resting his forehead on his hands. Xiaolu lay down beside him and put one head on his lap, while the other 2 looked around. He carelessly stroked the little green plush head, rubbing it like a ball of hair, and his eyes fell on Shen Yizi. Xiaoji, let me tell you something about my master. Why did you become a master again? Or a bad old man who was half broken into the earth? You have such bad taste. Even if you really want to become a master, you have to become a young and good-looking one. Like me. Shen Yizi knew he was going to suffer as soon as he heard this. Sure enough, Luo Yao Yao exploded. He pointed at Zhang Lingch and glared at Zhang Lingch, but he couldn't say anything to refute him. After all, the facts are here. Compared with Zhang Lingch, his image is indeed not that good. Gu Swiding spoke, what's the use of being young and good-looking? The purpose of becoming a disciple is to learn skills. If you find a showy master who doesn't look good and is useless, it's better not to have one at all. Who is this fashionable master talking about? The direction should not be too obvious. Hearing that his eldest disciple was supporting him, Luo Yao Yao suddenly started to tremble. He glanced at Zhang Lingch proudly and added lightly, under my guidance, Yi Ji has become a first-level talisman master. Being squeezed by the two masters and apprentices, Zhang Lingch's face suddenly darkened, and his hands were so strong that he almost licked Xiao Lu's hair bald. Xiao's Hizi, right, he stared at Shen Yizi with a resentful look. At this moment, Shen Yizi felt like he was a heartless man. She silently took out a pile of food and placed it on the table. Two masters, please stop arguing. Please sit down and talk calmly. Shen Yizi sat down first with Nian Nian in his arms. Gu Swiding and Qing Bao quickly occupied the seats next to her. Yuan Bao sat down next to Qing Bao. Finally, 2 seats were left. Zhang Lingch and Luo Yao Yao looked at each other with disgust. Sat down. Shen Yizi formally introduced the two parties, and also decided on the names of the two masters, Zhang Lingch and Luo Yao Yao, Master Lingch and Master Yao Yao. In terms of age, Luo Yao Yao is the older one, but in terms of succession, it is Zhang Lingch who became his master first. If they were called master, second master, the two of them would argue endlessly. Shen Yizi simply treated them equally and used their first names directly. Plus master's way to differentiate. At this time, although the two of them were still not satisfied, they said nothing. Without waiting for Zhang Lingch to ask, Shen Yizi took the initiative to explain, Master, I lost my memory, so I didn't recognize you at first. Up to now, I can only remember some scattered fragments. Amnesia. Yes, 4 years ago, a man in black robes suddenly appeared and handed my maid Qingluan a bottle of poison. He disfigured me and threw my body into the river. I was also lucky enough to survive. I was washed away by the current till Jiazhuang. Was rescued by a kind-hearted aunt, and lost her memory when she woke up. Shen Yizi briefly talked about his experiences in the past few years. Zhang Lingch felt extremely complicated after hearing this, with anger, distress, guilt, and sourness intertwined in his heart. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 352. No wonder you haven't been back once in the past few years. I thought you were too happy to be in the imperial capital. I went to Pei's mansion before, and the people in Pei's mansion said that you went to the palace to attend some kind of flower viewing banquet. At that time, I thought it was strange. Don't you always like to get involved in this kind of thing? It's a pity that I left in a hurry at that time. If I could have met Qingluan who dared to pretend to be you, I wouldn't have known about it now. It can only be said that things in the world are confusing. Zhang Lingch tapped his fingers on the table silently. Have you found out who the man in black robes who suddenly appeared is? If you dare to harm his disciples, you must be prepared to have him come to deal with you. Shen Yizi shook his head, but we did find out a little bit about the person behind Qingluan. Who? The immortal medical section. Zhang Lingch frowned. The immortal doctor section. As far as he knows, the immortal medicine sect is a sect that mainly focuses on medical cultivation. It is always good at charity and helping people, and has a very good reputation. Why is this matter related to the immortal medicine sect? Is the benevolence of the immortal doctors just an illusion? What is their purpose in doing this? Shen Yizi shook his head. I don't know about that. I haven't moved on King Luan's side for the time being, but Xueting sent someone to monitor her closely. Once she makes any changes, we will know immediately. When the time comes, the fairy doctor, it's clear what the purpose behind the door is. Master, please tell me about my past. As a person with amnesia, the feeling of knowing nothing about the past is really terrible. After finally meeting someone familiar from the past, of course she had to take the opportunity to find out something. Fan. Zhang Lingch looked at her. What do you want to know? Anything is fine. Shen Yizi peeled a shrimp for him and put it into his bowl. Gu Suiting glanced silently and made a mental note of Zhang Lingch again. Shen Yizi didn't notice that he was neglecting him invisibly, and his attention was focused on Zhang Lingch. Your father, Shen Jiangan, lives on Kunling Island. Zhang Lingch's first words shocked Shen Yizi. Master, isn't my father Pei Qinlin? Pei Qinlin is the head of the Pei family. After Qingluan assumed her identity and returned to the Pei family, she became the legitimate daughter of the Pei family and ranked 7th in the family, so people outside called her Miss Pei Qi. Shen Yizi was really unfamiliar with the name Pei Qinlin and this person. She didn't know whether it was because of her amnesia or because the father and daughter didn't get along too much before she lost her memory, so even if she knew her identity, she didn't arrive. The emperor went to the capital to meet the Pei family. As a result, it turns out that her father is someone else. Shen Yizi was confused. Her life experience was a bit too complicated, right? Why are you in a hurry? Listen to me and tell you slowly. Zhang Lingch slowly ate the shrimp she peeled. Glancing at Luo Yao Yao and Gu Suiting, who were doing their own thing next to him, he felt an inexplicable sense of superiority. Look, the apprentice was the only one peeling shrimps for him. As for the 3 Qingbaos, they had already eaten enough and ran away to play. Not very interested in adult topics. Zhang Lingch continued to tell about Shen Yizi's past, while Gu Suiting and Luo Yao Yao listened silently with their ears pricked up. For some reason, your father was trapped on Kunling Island in Qiandao Lake and was not allowed to leave. Your mother, Pei Xiang, was born in the Pei family and was Pei Qinlin's biological sister. 20 years ago, your mother went out. After a lot of experience, I accidentally ended up on Kunling Island and fell in love with your father at first sight, but for some reason, your father refused to accept your mother. At this point, Zhang Lingch looked weird for a moment. I just slapped your and left. Ahem, cough. Shen Yizi was glad that he was not drinking water or eating. Even so, he was still choking on his own saliva. I never expected that her mother would be such a strange woman. Gu Suiting hurriedly helped her carry her and poured a glass of water for her to drink. Shen Yizi took his hand and drank. The movements between the two were so natural and intimate that it made Zhang Lingch's eyes hurt. Inexplicably, he felt as if his juicy cabbage had been snatched away by a wolf, which made him very unhappy. If Brother Shen knew that Xiaoji was married and had children, the fate of this guy Gu Suiting will definitely not be much better. Thinking of this, Zhang Lingch began to sympathize with Gu Suiting, his eyes filled with gloating. After your mother left, she found out she was pregnant when she returned to Pei's house later. She died in childbirth when she gave birth to you. Shen Yizi's heart suddenly tightened. My mother has passed away. Zhang Lingch nodded. Gu Suiting pressed Shen Yizi into his arms and comforted her silently. In fact, Shen Yizi was not that sad. After all, she and Pei Xiang had never gotten along at all, and she had no memory of her. It's just that I feel a little depressed. Master, please continue. Your mother gave birth to a child out of wedlock. Pei Qinlin was afraid that the news would spread and cause rumors, so he declared that you were his daughter and asked everyone in the house to agree on it. And your father sensed your birth. Wait a minute, my dad sensed my birth, what does this mean? How awesome is his father, can he sense this? Is your focus a bit biased? Your father's abilities are beyond your imagination. Okay, don't interrupt. Peel some more shrimp meat. Zhang Lingch tapped the rim of the bowl with his chopsticks and ordered her smoothly. Oh, Shen Yizi peeled the shrimp for him honestly. Gu Swiding held her hand and helped her wipe her fingers clean one by one. I'll do it. He has never eaten shrimps peeled by Yizi himself several times. Zhang Lingch didn't refuse, anyway, who peeled it and didn't eat it? He even glanced at Luo Yao Yao proudly and saw that your eldest disciple even peeled the shrimps for me himself. Luo Yao Yao glared at Gu Swiding, how could this brat ever be so filial to him? Shen Yizi put a piece of snow-white shrimp meat into his bowl and said, Master Yao Yao, eat the shrimp. Luo Yao Yao's anger was immediately relieved. As expected, the female apprentice was still well behaved and lovely. Zhang Lingch felt that this old man was too naive. After sensing your birth, your father sent me to bring you back. After I went to Pei's house, I told Pei Qinlin the truth, and Pei Qinlin confirmed that I was really sent by your father. After that, he handed you over to me, telling the outside world that you were born weak and needed to be trained and treated by an expert like me. I will take you back to Kunling Island, and your father and 2 grown men will slowly raise you from a little one. Zhang Lingch sighed with an old father's tone. Fortunately, you have been sensible and obedient since you were a child, and you have never cried or fussed, so you are easy to take care of. But when you grow up, you become eccentric. You always like to sneak out. The longest time you spent outside was for more than half a year. You just came home. Your father and I were so angry that we locked you up for a month. As Shen Yizi listened, a few fragments vaguely flashed through his mind, and at the same time, he became increasingly certain that he was pregnant. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 353. When you were about to turn 15, Pei Qinlin sent a message and said he wanted to take you back, hold a grand hair extension ceremony for you, and find a good marriage for you. Gu Swiding held Shen Yizi's hand tightly and actually wanted to marry Yizi to someone else. Pei Qinlin, Yizi's uncle, he wrote it down. Your father has never thought about marrying you off. He wishes to keep you forever. However, your uncle's letter reminded us that there is a custom here for girls to have hairpins when they are 15 years old, so we went to Kunling Island first. I organized one for you. You said you wanted to visit the imperial capital and see what the place where your mother once lived was like. Actually, we all know that you are ambitious and can't stay on Kunling Island any longer. You are not allowed to stay in the female university. Although your father and I were reluctant to let you go, we couldn't bear your pestering, so we let you go. I said I would send you there, but you still wouldn't let me. At this point, Zhang Lingch regretted it again and hit Shen Yizi on the head. If he knew that she almost died when she went out, he would have detained her on the island no matter what. Shen Yizi felt aggrieved and said, Master, I am already a mother. Qingbao and the others are watching, can you save some face for me? Gu Swiding rubbed her forehead with his big hands, looking distressed. Zhang Lingch rolled his eyes. Even if this girl lost her memory, her virtues of pleasing and being obedient had not changed at all. Okay, I've said all that I need to say. Just now he went to talk, and hadn't eaten a few sips of dishes. Zhang Lingch picked up his chopsticks and stretched to a crystal rosy hoof. He had long been optimistic. The hooves are as tender as tofu, so shaky that I can barely pick them up. Once you taste them, they melt in your mouth. They are fat but not greasy. After a sip of wine, the taste is very delicious. Your cooking skills are getting more and more amazing, he praised. Shen Yizi smiled and gave him a glass of wine, then eat more. Thinking of something, Zhang Ling suddenly stopped and said, "Did you sneak into my medicine garden before?" "What?" Zhang Ling raised his hand and transformed into the beast Xiao Hong. It looks like a leopard, with a red body, 3 tails, and a jade-like horn on its head. Shen Yizi recognized it at a glance. "Isn't this the same strange beast he met twice in Qingmang Mountain? I raised you to visit the medicine garden, but you bribed me and brought you into the medicine garden. You picked a lot of my elixirs, thinking that I wouldn't care if you left a bunch of food for me." Zhang Lingch looked at her with a half-smile. Shen Yizi diligently scooped up a bowl of fresh and thick mutton soup for him and served it to him in a flattering manner, even having to feed him with his own hands. "Master, actually when I was standing in the medicine garden, I remembered something. I know that this is your medicine garden, Master. There are many medicines in it that I planted myself, right? I don't want to ask myself take it, but you won't be here at that time." Zhang Ling snorted. He didn't really want to argue with her. Is it a big deal for an apprentice to dig up a few elixirs from his master? He just wanted to take the opportunity to enjoy more of his master's benefits. However, if one's own disciples don't care about it, outsiders will have to care about it. He finished the soup, wiped the corners of his mouth, and looked at Gu Switting like an elder. "Xueting, right? You poached the yin and yang flowers that I worked so hard to raise, and then took away the 1,000-year-old snow ginseng that I have been waiting for a long time. Logically speaking, you have a close relationship with Xiaoji, and I am the elder. I shouldn't argue with you, but these two elixirs are closely related, and I have to settle this account with you." Gu Switting immediately handed over the snow ginseng that had been put into the jade box. "I really have never seen the yin-yang flower. Did Master misunderstand it? As for the snow ginseng, there was no one guarding it when I arrived. However, since Master is useful, I won't begrudge you." Sincerity in attitude. However, this was not the case in Zhang Ling's ears. "What do you mean by no one was guarding you when you arrived? What does Master is useful, I will not begrudge. Listen to this, it sounds like he is the evil master who takes advantage of others." Seeing that Zhang Lingch was about to have an attack, Shen Yizi hurriedly took out a water basin. In it was a black and white lotus. It was full of vitality and stretched out. It was a yin and yang flower. "Master, look, is this the yin-yang flower you mentioned? It's true that Xueting didn't take it, I did." Zhang Lingch thought she was trying to excuse Gu Switting at first, but seeing Gu Switting's surprised expression, he knew that what she said was not a lie. "What's going on?" He gently touched the petals of the yin-yang flower. Shen Yizi fell off the cliff and found the yin-yang flower. Later, Gu Switting came down, killed the dragon, and told her what happened in detail. Only then did Zhang Lingch realize that he had really misunderstood Gu Switting. He looked a little uncomfortable. "It seems that I wronged you. This glass of wine is my apology to you." He picked up the wine glass, clinked it with Gu Switting, and both of them raised their heads and drank it down in one gulp. After drinking this glass of wine, the aura between the two people inexplicably relaxed a lot. Shen Yizi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. "You have raised this yin and yang flower very well. I'd better let you continue to raise it. I will ask you for it when the time comes." Zhang Lingch motioned to Shen Yizi to put the flowers away. Then, he put Shen Yizi aside and took Gu Switting and Luo Yao Yao to drink. The dinner table suddenly became the world of 3 men. "When I saw you for the first time, you seemed to be in a bad state after a few glasses of wine," Zhang Lingch asked Gu Switting. Facing the master who raised Gigi, Gu Switting had nothing to hide, so he revealed that he had been poisoned by the devil. Devil poison. Zhang Lingch thought of his state and suddenly made a shocking guess. If his guess comes true, things will be very difficult. He drank wine and suppressed the worries in his heart. Shen Yizi put away the finished dishes on the table and added other dishes. Seeing the three men chatting animatedly, she herself became redundant and simply left the table. When he turned around, Qingbao and the other three were nowhere to be seen. At first she thought the three of them were playing in some room. After her unremitting feeding, the space in the Tianzhou has become very spacious, with more than 10 large and small rooms. In addition to the kitchen, living room, bedroom, and study room, there is also a toy room specially designed for Qingbao and the others. Shen Yizi walked all the way, but when he came to the toy room, the three of them were still missing. But she still didn't feel panic at this time. After all, she was on a sky boat, and the sky boat was floating in mid-air. Where else could the three Qingbao be on the boat if they weren't on the boat? Maybe he hid in a corner somewhere. After searching the entire Tianzhou, Shen Yizi still couldn't see Qingbao and the other three. Now she really realized that something was wrong. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 354. Xueting, Qingbao, and the others are gone. My consciousness scanned the entire ship and I couldn't see them. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be the case. Where would they go if they weren't on the ship? There is a layer of barrier outside the Tianzhou as a shield, so they will not fall. So where did they go? Shen Yizi was really puzzled. Gu Suiting, on the other hand, guessed it instantly. Zhizi, don't worry, Qingbao and the others are fine. Gu Suiting hugged her and patted her along her back. Do you know anything? Luo Yao Yao and Zhang Lingch also stared at him closely. Now that Zhang Lingch's identity was clear and he was no longer an outsider, Gu Suiting recounted his previous experience in the small space. At the end, he said, I think Qingbao must have entered that small space with Yuan Bao and Nian Nian. Shen Yizi really didn't know what expression to put on after hearing this. My son is truly worthy of being the darling of heaven. He picked up a small space for free on a trip, worshipped a Mahayana master, and inherited countless legacies from the master. It was like getting rich overnight. If it weren't for her own son, she wouldn't be able to help but feel jealous. But these are not the point is. The reason why Tianyuan realm's spiritual energy is thin is that someone set up a 9 dragons covering the sky formation. Even the way of heaven has been deceived. This boss who set up the formation is really awesome. As a victim, she couldn't even feel resentment. Nothing else, she was just a member of the common people, and there was literally a Milky Way gap between her and the big boss. How could she become resentful when the gap was so huge? Shen Yizi asked, is there any way to break this formation? If they are always suppressed by the formation, they will only be able to practice until the foundation building stage at most in the future, and their longevity will be limited. How could she accept this? If she had never been exposed to immortality, she could still be willing to be immortal and spend a short life. But she has now embarked on the path of cultivating immortality, so naturally she wants to go further and enter a higher realm. Stay green in vain, look for a long time, break the void, and find the great road. This is probably the eternal pursuit of every immortal cultivator. But now, this 9 dragons covering the sky formation has blocked the way for all of them. After asking those words, Shen Yizi felt a wave of frustration in his heart. How easy was it to break the formation? Otherwise this formation would not have existed for so long. However, Zhang Lingch gave her a definite answer, if the formation can be laid, it can naturally be broken, but it is very difficult, very difficult. How to break it? Shen Yizi asked. Zhang Lingch did not answer but asked instead, do you know why your father was trapped on Kunling Island? Aren't you talking about how to break the 9 dragons covering the sky formation? Why did the topic suddenly turn here? Suddenly, Shen Yizi realized a possibility, is it related to this sky shielding formation? That's right. Your father used to have a very important position in the Qingyuan world. Even King Bao's master was just a junior in front of him. Unfortunately, Something happened later and he was forced to fall into the Tianyuan world. Boundary. Zhang Lingch had a faint flash of hatred in his eyes. Your father also discovered the existence of the sky covering formation, and he destroyed an formation point with one move. That formation point is located on Kunling Island in Qiandao Lake. But he didn't expect that the sky covering formation was far better than he expected. Be awesome. After the formation eye was broken, not only was the formation not broken, it also trapped him in place, absorbing spiritual power from him all the time. What, after so many years, isn't my father? Even though her father was once very strong, he still couldn't withstand the formation. Zhang Lingch patted her hand and said, "Don't worry, your dad can still hold on." He reacted quickly. After being imprisoned by the formation, he made a decisive decision and contracted a conch that became a spirit. Then, he used the conch near Qiandao Lake. Absorbing incense and strengthening itself through the power of people's faith, the balance is barely reached between the incoming and outgoing. Incense. This word is not unfamiliar to Shen Yizi. She remembered that she had seen it in the Romance of the Gods in her previous life. After Neza cut off the bones and returned the meat to his biological parents, he entrusted his mother with a dream and asked her mother to build a temple to help him gather the people's incense and use it to consolidate the soul body and reshape the physical body. The gods and goddesses in the book, such as Nuwa, also need to absorb the power of people's faith. It can be seen that incense is a very high-end power. If spiritual power is still a power that can be controlled, then the power of faith derived from incense seems to be very ethereal. But this power is obviously very useful and powerful. After listening to Shen Yizi's interpretation, Zhang Lingch nodded, yes, incense is a kind of wish power gathered from the human heart. In this world, spiritual energy is thin, and there is no hope of using it to practice. You can only change cultivation others. In fact, it's not just your father, many monks from the Qingyuan world are interested in making incense. For example, Rong Xianer of the Immortal Medical Sect, do you think she is really so kind to treat people for free and help the world? Don't you want people to worship her and provide her with incense? And Chu Yongkong, the head of Yunqian Temple Wind. Although incense cannot increase a monk's cultivation, the benefits are self-evident. However, it is not so easy to absorb incense. First of all, people in this world are under the rule of the Tianyuan Empire. If people worship privately without official permission, they will be regarded as evil gods by the authorities, and cults will be suppressed. Shen Yi knew that it was necessary to have an official background. For example, Master Kuashi was worshipped by the royal family, and Master Changfeng was a member of the Buddhist sect, and Buddhism was widely spread in the Tianyuan Empire. The Immortal Medical Sect is doing a good job of treating people, so the government will not stop it. Secondly, you have to make the people willingly come to worship you, so that you will have the power of will. And to do this, it is difficult to say, and it is easy to say. The conch spirit contracted by your father is to protect the party. He claims to be the of the lake and has saved the people from danger many times, so that the people living within Qiandao Lake can live and work in peace and contentment without being disturbed by the waves and monsters in the lake. This is why he is worshipped by the people. At this point, the topic of incense is almost over, and Zhang Lingch returns to the heaven-covering formation. Your father guessed that in order to break the formation, 9 holes of the formation need to be broken at the same time, and the entire formation will collapse in one fell swoop. In this way, the formation spirit of the heaven-covering formation has nothing to do and is unable to recover. Otherwise, once there is one formation eye left, it will come back. Shen Yizi's heart was heavy after hearing this, and 9 formation eyes were broken at the same time. Easier said than done? Qingbao's master, a great master in the Mahayana stage like Zhang Chan Yuzhang, had most of his spiritual power sucked away when he destroyed the formation. Her father, a more powerful being than Zhang Chanyu, was also imprisoned by the formation. It would be great if the spirit formation could actively disarm the formation. Shenyazi is whimsical. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 355. Speaking of which, what is this sky shielding formation used for? Isn't the big guy who set up the formation just to prevent people from the Tianyuan world from upgrading? Shenyazi asked. Luo Yao Yao snorted, what else could it be for? To absorb spiritual energy. What is the purpose of absorbing spiritual energy? Shenyazi continued to ask. Gu Switting said, I guess there is probably something contained in that formation, which requires a large amount of spiritual energy to be swallowed. Just like before, the master set up an formation to swallow the life force of the dragon to feed the yin-yang flower. Zhang Lingch gave him an appreciative look. Big brother said the same thing. It's just that we have no way of knowing what it is. If this is really the case, isn't the big man who set up the formation still alive? When the day comes when the things are ready, will he take them away and then remove the formation? Shenyazi spreads his thoughts. No one can answer her this question. When Tianzhou returned home, the sky was already dark, and the vegetation in the courtyard was shrouded in the light night. Shenyazi got off the boat with Nian Nian in his arms, while Gu Switting carried Qingbao and Yuan Bao. Luo Yao Yao walked in familiarly with the door and the road. Zhang Lingch looked at the courtyard with curiosity. Hand Nian Nian to Gu Switting and ask him to take the children up to sleep. Shenyazi personally took Zhang Lingch to the side room and made a bed for him. Master, do you think there is anything missing? Zhang Lingch looked at her happily. You are indeed a mother now, and you can serve your master. How could you do such a thing in the past? Shenyi knew he was embarrassed and coughed lightly. Master, take a good rest and call me if you need anything. Little cicada. When Shenyazi turned around, Zhang Lingch stopped her. What's wrong, master? He came to her and pinched her once disfigured right cheek. It must have been painful at the time, right? Shenyazi's nose suddenly felt sore and he shook his head. I have lost my memory. How can I still remember it? But it was really painful during the treatment. At that time, I gritted my teeth and thought, when I find out who harmed me, I will have to kill him the way can only cure the person's body. Well, that's exactly what it should be. Zhang Lingch didn't think there was anything wrong with doing this at all. He walked to the table and sat down. Come here, I still have something to say to you. It was not convenient to say it on the boat before. Shenyazi suddenly felt a bad premonition and slowly walked over and sat down opposite him. Your father's time is running out. As soon as Zhang Lingch opened his mouth, Shenyazi's ears buzzed. What? Although she has not recovered her memory, Shenyazi is naturally close to Shenji Ungan. How can she accept this news when she suddenly hears it? Why did I lie to you? Although your father is powerful and has a lot of incense, he has been squeezed by the 9 dragons covering the sky for so many years, and his physical foundation has been ruined long ago. So in the past few years, I have been looking for something that can extend my life. Panacea, this is why I neglected you. And your father thought you were doing well in the imperial capital and didn't want you to know about this, so he endured not contacting you. Who would have thought that due to a combination of circumstances, you would suffer so much? Shenyazi's eyes turned red. Isn't there a yin-yang flower now, if you take it, my father? If I had taken yin-yang flower half a year ago, there might have been some hope, but now, I'm afraid it won't work. However, Zhang Lingch did not say these words to avoid inserting a knife into Shenyazi's heart. After all, it was she who took away the yin-yang flower without knowing it, which was why Shenji Ungan failed to receive treatment in time. However, even if he didn't say it, Shenyazi guessed this. She was silent for a long time, then said in a solemn voice, How much time does my father have? About half a year. Zhang Lingch gave a more ideal figure. Half a year. Shenyazi did not expect that he would receive such bad news just after he learned that he was a child with a father. There must be a way, she murmured. After all, she is the one who has the God Emperor Pearl. As long as she accumulates enough points, is she afraid that she will not be able to buy a panacea that can extend her life? Thinking of this, Shenyazi's eyes became firm. Master, I won't let anything happen to my father. Zhang Lingch touched her head and said nothing. After leaving his room, Shenyazi did not return to the small building. Instead, he came to the yard with a heavy heart, sat down on the swing under the pomegranate tree, bent his knees and rested his chin on his knees. His consciousness penetrated into the space and started searching in the grocery store. Enter keywords, drugs or methods that can extend life. A bunch of items came out from below. The first one is the longevity pill, which can extend your life by 5-10 years depending on your physical condition after taking it. Sale price 1 million points. The next one is the good fortune pill. As the name suggests, after taking it, it can take over the good fortune of heaven and earth, making the whole person reborn, like a new life, and extending life is just a side effect of it. Sale price 10 million points. The body is comparable to a spiritual treasure. After death, the soul resides in it, which is equivalent to starting over with a new body. It can nourish the soul without risk. Sale price 5 million points. There are many ways. Shenyazi had to sigh at the power of the God Emperor Pearl. As long as he has points, nothing is impossible. But the problem is, it's really hard to earn points. She got a world bead through great luck before, and she only exchanged 2 million points, of which 1.5 million was used to buy land, and the 500,000 in her hand was spent continuously. These days, I have been treating people every day, actively doing good deeds to earn merit, and purchasing natural and earthly treasures, but I have only accumulated tens of thousands of points. At present, she has less than 60,000 points in total, which is not even enough to buy life-extending pills. Furthermore, she also has the task of buying the first level of space, which requires at least 2 million minimum points. Now there are less than 3 months left before the end of the mission. After all, she is still too poor. After being bald for a while, Shenyazi began to actively think of ways to get points, but it was not necessary to use points to buy longevity pills. Even though Master Lingch said that high-level alchemists are hard to find in this world, it doesn't mean that they can't be found. As long as they are found, she can always find a way to make him agree to make alchemy for her. If it really doesn't work, at worst, she'll go up by herself. Whether you hire someone to practice it or prepare it yourself, you must collect all the medicinal materials. Shenyazi clicked on the detailed information of the longevity elixir and found that the seller was really very conscientious. He not only introduced the detailed data of the elixir, but also listed the medicinal materials and weights used in refining the elixir. Isn't this equivalent to announcing the recipe? Aren't the store owners afraid that others will learn from it? Then I thought about it, even if you have the recipe for a high-level elixir like the life extension pill, not everyone can make it. What's more, she only has access to this grocery store as the master of the trial of the God Emperor Pearl. Qualifications: others can't even touch the edge of the grocery store, let alone see the recipe for the elixir inside. So her worries are completely unfounded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 356. Yin Yang Hua, more than 1,000 years old, the medicinal parts are white petals. Kuki, more than 300 years old, the medicinal parts are roots. Luan bee honey, more than 100 years old. Yobeo, more than 50 years old. Shen Yazi took a closer look at the longevity elixir formula and found that most of the medicinal ingredients in it were available in her space, except for Guki, Luenbi Queen Honey and Yubeo. She clicked Guki, and a small frame popped up next to it with a clear small painting and a brief introduction. Odor, bitter, cold, non-toxic. Efficacy, strong bones and muscles, lightening the body and not aging, tolerating cold and heat, replenishing qi, replenishing blood, regenerating yang, and growing yin. With this, she will be able to search for this medicinal material according to the map. Luan bee is a colorful giant bee. Its cry is like a luan and phoenix, so it is called luan bee. The largest one can weigh more than 10 kilograms. The nests of this kind of bee are built among deep rocks and steep mountains, and the largest ones cover an area of 2 to 3 acres. Luan bees are very picky about food and only feed on spiritual flowers. The honey they produce is green in color and is stored in white jade bowls. The outside and inside are as clear as blue glass. If they eat it for a long time, they can make people live longer and look like a boy. The royal jelly of Luan bee is a higher level of royal jelly than the honey produced by ordinary Luan bee. This kind of honey is also an indispensable material for refining the beauty pill. Can such bees be found in the Tianyuan world where spiritual energy is thin? Shen Yazi expressed deep doubts about this. The third medicinal material is even rarer. She has only heard of bees or dog treasure, horse treasure, etc. This is the first time she has heard of fish treasure. To put it bluntly, dog treasure is a stone in the stomach of a dog. Is this fish treasure also a stone produced in the stomach of a fish? Shen Yazi took a look at the introduction and realized that it really was. But other than that, there is no other explanation. There are thousands of fish in the world, where can she find one with stones in its belly? Gu Swiding coaxed Qingbao and the others to sleep. Seeing that Shen Yazi didn't come up, he came to look for her. Seeing her sitting on the swing with her knees clasped, her head drooped, her profile looked very lonely, fragile, and helpless. His heart shrank, he strode over, squatted down in front of her, and held up her face with his palms. Zhizi, what's wrong? It would have been better if he didn't come, but when she saw him, all kinds of weak emotions filled her heart. Leaning forward, she hugged his neck and rubbed against his shoulder, Gu Swiding. There was a hint of crying in her voice. She was shocked. I'm here, what's wrong? Zhizi, tell me. Gu Swiding tightened his arms, keeping her close to him. My master said that my father's time is running out, Shen Yazi said in a low voice. Gu Swiding's heart sank, and he stroked her hair gently. Just as he was about to say that he would accompany her to Qiandao Lake to see Shenji Ungan, the ground rat came out of the ground and squeaked twice at the two people hugging each other. Xiaojin is here. Shen Yazi withdrew from Gu Swiding's arms. Because the earthly rat king was fed better and better by her, the hair on its body actually metamorphosed, and the ends turned into pale gold, so she gave it such a name. Xiaojin was much closer to her than to Gu Swiding, his real master. He shook himself on the spot for a while, shaking off all the dirt on his body, and then rushed to her. Shen Yazi opened his arms and hugged its plush body. Xiaojin let out a cry of satisfaction, and subconsciously rubbed his head against her chest. Suddenly I felt a chill on my neck. As expected, this death ray came from its male owner. Xiaojin had already developed some intelligence, equivalent to that of a 5 or 6-year-old child. He immediately got out of Shen Yazi's arms with great desire to survive, ran to Gu Swiding to show his courtesy, and took the initiative to give his head to his hands for him to touch. Gu Swiding took advantage of the situation and stroked it, and his eyes finally became warm again when he looked at it. Xiaojin, fortunately, I was resourceful and managed to survive in time. But the male host was too jealous. Gu Swiding sat on the swing, held Shen Yazi on his lap, passed his arms under her armpits to surround her, and rested his chin on her shoulder. Then he reached out and took the kinkan bag held by Xiaojin. Inside is a letter sent by a subordinate. Shenyazi had no intention of prying into his letter, but with him holding him in such a posture, he opened the letter in front of her without avoiding her at all. It was difficult for her not to see it. The letter said that the whereabouts of the imperial concubine's body had been found. Shenyazi remembered that when she was at Prince Chen's mansion, Gu Swiding told her that his mother's body was missing. He must have never given up on finding his mother's body all these years. Now that there is news, she can't help but be happy for him. Your mother has been found. Gu Swiding corrected her, Zhizi, it's our mother. They have become Taoist couples. He turned her around to face him, and rubbed the corners of her eyes with his warm fingertips. I originally planned to go to Qiandao Lake with you to meet my father-in-law, but now. Finally, he had a clue about his mother's body. He didn't want to leave it to his subordinates, so he had to go there himself. Shenyazi grabbed his hand and said, when the time comes, help me say hello to my mother. I will also say good things to my father for you. The new year is approaching, and I thought they could have a happy new year together, but things always happen unexpectedly, and they all have their own things to do. The two of them returned to the small building hand in hand, and Shenyazi began to pack Gu Swiding's luggage. These are the 2 sets of middle coats I made for you. I originally planned to give them to you after a while. Shenyazi took out 2 sets of snow-white, soft middle coats. To be honest, her level of needlework is very average, and there is no need to expect embroidery or anything like that. But the middle coat is worn inside, and it is mainly comfortable and close to the body. As long as the stitching is fine, there is no need for fancy things. The fabrics used to make these 2 sets of middle coats are made of silk spun by spiritual silkworms raised in the space. They are silky, soft, light, and breathable, very skin-friendly, and should be very comfortable to wear. Gu Swiding stroked the fabric, feeling warm and affectionate in his heart, and hugged Shenyazi from behind. Do you still remember the 2 robes I asked you to make for me when I was recovering from my injuries in Qingmang Mountain? A smile broke out on Shenyazi's lips. Why don't you remember? At that time, you gave me several gold leaves and asked me to buy 2 pieces of clothes. I thought to myself, where did this wealthy person come from? Buy 2. How can I spend so much money on a piece of clothing? Where do you think the rest of the money went after buying the clothes? Gu Swiding smiled softly, and the heat spread on her cochlea, causing a tingling sensation. Shenyazi spoke in a brisk voice, like a proud little fox, I secretly spent the remaining money and bought a lot of food. Who told you to be so good at eating? As a result, I specially picked out the clothes for you. You don't like any of it, but you let me do it for you. Some of the situations we got along with at the time were nothing special, but looking back now, I can't help but feel a little sweet in my heart. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 357. Gu Swiding teased her, the stitching of those 2 clothes is really rough. I'm afraid the clothes will break if I use more strength. Shenyazi turned around and hammered him, really? I see you were quite happy with what you were wearing. Gu Swiding let her small fist fall on his chest. When he stepped back, he deliberately fell down on the couch and hooked her over with one hand. The bodies overlapped and the eyes faced each other. An impatient emotion spread in the hearts of the 2 of them. The air suddenly became a little hot. A long and lingering kiss ended. Gu Swiding was about to take a step further. Shenyazi pressed against his shoulder, no. Zhizi. His lips were still moving around hers, and his words were pleading. Thinking that he might, no, would definitely get poisoned from this, Shenyazi became even more determined. He held his head in his arms and stroked his hair, good boy, wait until you have recovered from the poison. Let's talk about it later. Gu Swiding was trapped in the warm fragrance of soft jade, with red light and dark colors flashing alternately in his eyes, and finally returned to calm. The next day, Gu Switting kissed Qingbao's 3 foreheads one by one and looked at them for a long time without waking them up or saying goodbye to them in person. Taking a bunch of food and drink prepared for him by Shen Yizi, he rode the big puppet bird and left Jiazhuan quietly. Shen Yizi leaned on the railing of the balcony, looking at the direction he left. He looked away for a while and sighed melancholy. Gu Switting has his own things to do, and she also has a lot of things to be busy with. She should keep her sadness in her heart, deep in her heart. After going downstairs, Shen Yizi began to prepare for going to Qiandao Lake. Now that Mocking City has been initially established, with such a big stall, she would have to make a lot of arrangements if she wanted to leave. She summoned Xiao San, the chief manager, to explain everything one by one. In addition to the construction and management of Mocking City, the acquisition of natural materials and treasures cannot stop, and the more good deeds must be done, the better. In addition, she also asks Xiao San to pay attention to collecting the 3 elixirs needed to refine the life-extending pill. By the way, set up a life-size statue of me in the medical hall, college, and city center, and then place these formation plates next to the sculpture. Shen Yizi also got inspiration from Zhang Lingch for the erection of the statue, and wanted to see if he could also absorb the power of incense. She has asked Qin Kaiu, incense can also be redeemed for points. Asked him why she didn't tell him from the beginning, but he scolded her, is it useful to tell you at the beginning? Similarly, without that mass base, even if she knew that incense was useful, she would not be able to collect it. Even now, she is not sure that she can collect incense. She just wants to give it a try. Moreover, she didn't dare to blatantly build a temple for people to worship her. Otherwise, if the news came to the ears of the government, she might be labeled as a cult. The civilization of cultivating immortals in the Tianyuan world has fallen into decline after all. Compared with hundreds of millions of ordinary people, those monks who have not reached the Qi refining stage and have not yet left the realm of mortals must abide by the order of the empire. It can be said that the imperial power is really powerful in this world, and there are also a large number of monks serving the royal family. Although she now has a certain power and foundation, she is just a ship in front of the giant ship of the empire. Just a boat. It is far from being ignored. Once she is identified by the government as a demon who spreads a cult, what she has now is likely to fall apart, and it will be very difficult to develop it in the future. It can be said that those forces that can be worshipped by the people and collect incense openly are actually under the control of the royal family. After explaining everything one by one, Shen Yizi let out a long breath. As soon as Xiao San left, Qingbao and others ran in. Mom, where is Dad? Perhaps because he missed the growth of Qingbao and the others, Gu Switting felt guilty towards them, so once he got the chance to get along with them, he wanted to pamper them to the sky. Put them to sleep every night, wake them up in the morning, dress them, and wash them. These are the most basic. Gu Switting was not impatient at all while doing it, but actually enjoyed it very much. These days, the 3 of you, Qingbao, have become a bit spoiled and become slackers. When they woke up in the morning and didn't see their father, they immediately panicked. Shen Yizi looked at the 3 little guys looking for their daddy, and felt a little want to laugh for no reason. Your father has important things to do, and he wanted to say goodbye to you who told you to sleep like little pigs, and you can't wake up no matter what. Is it really? Qingbao is a little skeptical. Then daddy can't just walk away. Hey, this kid has also learned the word just walk away, but isn't it a bit inappropriate to use it here? Shen Yizi knelt down and touched his head. Okay, go wash your face and brush your teeth and eat. After you finish eating, go say goodbye to your friends. Mother is taking you on a long trip. Going on a far journey. Where to go? The 3 of them said in unison, looking at her with wide eyes. Go and see your grandpa. Asterisk. Zhongyao, Suinlings Hu. Loxia Mountains. The Immortal Medical Sect. A woman in a white dress walked slowly to the front of the main hall. Her skin was as white as snow, and the bright red cinnabar mole between her eyebrows was particularly beautiful. Moreover, her temperament was elegant and refined. She was really a rare beauty. The two maids guarding the door of the main hall saw her and bowed and saluted, "Young master." The woman smiled and nodded, her expression very gentle, making people feel like a spring breeze. After entering the palace, she saluted the beautiful woman sitting by the window, "Master. That gorgeous woman looks like she is only 20 years old, but if you look closely at her eyes, you can find that her eyes are quiet and there is no liveliness of a young woman. She is the head of the immortal medicine sect, Rong Siener. Full on, you come with me as my master." Rong Siener put down the book in his hand, stood up and walked towards the back hall. Zhao Fulan followed. A remote room in the back hall was pushed open. The sun shines in obliquely, and countless tiny dust particles dance in the beam of light. Rong Siener walked in with Zhao Fulan. In the center of the room, there is a huge sand table. The sand table is a thumbnail of the entire Tianyuan Empire, including the 5 regions of East, West, South, North, and Middle. Mountains, rivers, lakes, seas, cities, and fortresses are all clearly listed on it. Logically speaking, such a detailed sand table can only be owned by the imperial military. Civilians are not allowed to collect it privately, and ordinary people cannot get it. But the immortal medical sect has it. On the sand table, there are densely packed small flags. The flags have red flowers on a white background, and are printed with the unique symbol of the immortal medicine sect, an ancient Chinese character for. Full on, do you know what these flags represent? Rong Siener stopped in front of the sand table. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 358. It represents that the immortal medicine sect has developed local people into believers. That's right. Our immortal medicine sect has developed so far and has a huge number of believers all over Tianyuan. These believers have continuously provided me with incense. But look at this place, it is still empty. Rong Siener pointed to a place, which was the junction of the central, southern, and western regions. In the center, there were 3 words Thousand Island Lake written on it. Thousand Island Lake is separated from the central territory by a vast jungle full of miasma, from the southern territory by a vast Gaiwei plain, and from the western territory by a large swamp. These 3 dangerous places provide a natural barrier for Thousand Island Lake. It's hard to cross. And all the residents on the island have been developed into believers by Chiu Konggaya. It's a pity that such a good place is lost. Rong Siener sighed, looking at Qiandao Lake with eyes full of ambition that she must win. Thousand Island Lake is said to be a lake, but it is actually an inland sea with a vast area and nearly 1,000 islands of various sizes distributed on it. Because of the natural barrier outside, this place belongs to a no-nonsense zone, which is equivalent to a small independent kingdom. However, because of the rich resources here, people often venture into it. With such a big piece of fat dangling in front of her eyes every day but unable to eat it in her mouth, Rong Siener was suffering very much day and night. Full on, my ability is clear to my master now. My master will give you a task. Zhao Fulan lowered his head, "Master, please speak." Qiandao Lake is a good place with abundant resources and abundant people. If it can be included in the sect of my immortal doctor, it will definitely attract a lot of incense. You can go there as a teacher and educate the people there. Yes, master. Rong Siener turned her palm over, and a palm-sized bright blanket lay in the palm of her hand. This is a flying magic weapon. Take it, so that you can reach Qiandao Lake as soon as possible. Zhao Fulan accepted the magical weapon and said, "Thank you, master." Go. Asterisk. Hara. In midair, a spaceship flashed by. In the cabin hall, Shen Yizi was playing chess with Zhang Lingch and listened to him talk about things in the past that he had forgotten. It has been 5 days since I left Ljiazhuang. These 5 days, they have been traveling day and night. Shen Yizi and Zhang Lingch took turns driving the flying boat. When Shen Yizi came out this time, he brought 3 Qingbao with him. Originally, Qingbao and the others were unhappy because Gu Swiding left without saying goodbye. As soon as they heard that Shen Yizi was taking them on a long trip, they immediately became excited and forgot about Gu Swiding. After eating and saying goodbye to their friends, they quickly packed up and bowed, as if this trip was for a spring outing. After they came out, they were in a high state of excitement. They didn't sleep at night, so they lay on the side of the boat and watched the scenery along the way. But after the initial excitement passed, their interest dropped. The scenery is just that, once you see it too much, you won't feel surprised at all. They started to have fun on their own. Shen Yizi didn't follow them either, but he had one rule: to have fun, you have to do your homework. Master, is this the Anagahara under here? It doesn't look as scary as you said. Shen Yizi glanced out the window. She controlled the sky boat to drop down a little, until it was more than 10 meters above the ground, so that she could see clearly what was going on below. Zhang Lingch ate several of her chess pieces in one breath, picked them up, and then said, "It just looks like. Once you actually walk inside, you will know how powerful it is." "Do you know why it is called ghost crying really?" Shen Yizi shook his head. "It's not like you don't know that I have lost my memory. First of all, it is named after the Amidavilia. This kind of grass has hollow stems and leaves. When it sways in the wind, it will make whistling and whimpering sounds, just like a ghost crying. The Amidavilia likes to devour flesh and blood, and once it gets close, it will be dragged in. In the grass, there are no bones left. The second is to describe the terrifying ghost crying, which makes everyone cry when the ghost comes." Shen Yizi raised his eyebrows. "Is it really that powerful?" She actually wanted to get a piece of Dixie Ute and check it out. "Oh, this devil's weeping grass is not the most powerful one. The most powerful one is the grass leech. The leech is covered in green grass, hence its name. It is usually hidden under the grass leaves and is motionless, so it is difficult to find it, but once let go if it gets close, just wait to be sucked dry of its blood. Many people who enter the Kwai Plains will die under the mouth of this leech." Shen Yizi had a physical resistance to soft-bodied insects such as blood-sucking leeches and slugs. When Zhang Lingch said this, goosebumps appeared on his arms. In addition to the devil's weeping grass and leeches, there is another beast on this grassland that needs to be vigilant, and that is the three-eyed wolf. A three-eyed wolf. Yes and no. The vast majority of three-eyed wolves have degenerated third eyes and may never be able to open them in their lifetime, unless they eat some natural treasure by chance. Only the relatively powerful wolf king can occasionally open it. "Open your third eye." "What's so great about the third eye?" Shen Yizi asked. Before Zhang Lingch could answer, she heard a burst of voices coming from below, accompanied by cries of pain and calls for help. By the time the sound reached her, the Tianzhou had already flown a long distance away. She hurriedly drove the Tianzhou back and lowered it to a height of 1 or 2 meters above the ground. At the same time, his spiritual consciousness swept over and he quickly discovered the reason for the commotion in the crowd. Someone has been drilled into the body by leeches, and that person is becoming thin and dry at a speed visible to the naked eye. The companions were frightened. They wanted to save but didn't know how to act. Shen Yizi jumped off the flying boat, pushed through the crowd and walked over. First, he fed the man a blood tonifying pill, and then his spiritual consciousness penetrated his body, found the leech, turned his spiritual consciousness into a needle, and killed the leech with one blow. The scalpel made an incision on his body, picked out the dead leeches inside, and threw them into the porcelain vase. Took out the hemostatic ointment and applied it to the man's incision. The blood was stopped before it had time to flow out. Shen Yizi fed him another Yang Yuan pill. This man's breath has calmed down and he has been saved. His life is not in danger now, but he needs to be recuperated later. Two of you will carry him to rest. Shenyazi stood up and said. Everyone just woke up from a dream. These people were from a caravan. At this time, the leader of the group came out and quickly arranged for two people to carry the man to the carriage. He took 2 steps forward and bowed to Shenyazi. My dear Kuiping, thank you girl for saving my son's life. It turned out that the man whose blood was almost sucked dry by leeches just now was his son. This is an old black ginseng passed down from Kui's family. It has a life-saving effect, but part of it has been used, and only half of it is left. If the girl doesn't dislike it, please accept it. Kuiping handed over a long box, in which lay half a bare black ginseng root, with all the roots gone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 359. Wanchen is different from ginseng. It is completely black in color, but the blackness is even and thorough. As soon as it is opened, a strong medicinal fragrance is diffused. Just smelling it makes people feel refreshed. From the looks of it, this black ginseng is estimated to be no less than 300 years old. Shenyazi accepted it and handed Kuiping a bottle of blood tonifying pills. This is a blood tonifying pill. It can help Mr. Ling recover as soon as possible. Kuiping's eyes lit up and he took it with both hands. Thank you very much, girl. By the way, don't you know the girl's surname? The leech got into Honor's body, but within a few breaths Honor shriveled up, and it seemed that he would not survive. However, this girl took action and saved Honor back in a few strokes. It can be seen that she is no ordinary person. It would also be good if we could take the opportunity to make some friends. Even if it wasn't for this, she was Honor's savior and should keep her name in mind. It was just a chance meeting. Shenyazi didn't want to tell him his name at first, but then he thought about it. Maybe he could gain some power of faith, so there was nothing wrong with telling him. My name is Shenyazi. After saying that, she planned to go back. When she turned around, she saw a person in the corner of her eye. The facial features of that person were 56 times similar to Nian. That was a boy of 16 or 17 years old. Although he was dressed as a man, he could tell at a glance that he was a girl. If you take off the concealing makeup on your face, I'm afraid it will look more like Nian. There are many people who look alike in the world, but considering the girl's age, Shenyazi couldn't help but have a guess in his mind. She walked towards the girl and found that there was a young man standing next to the girl. Their faces were 90% similar, just like a pair of twins. Shenyazi thought of the clues Gu Switting had investigated about Nian's life experience, and now he became more certain of his guess. Nian's elder brother Kui Shijhen was a romantic dandy. He didn't marry and have children until he was 25 years old. He gave birth to a pair of twin children, his elder brother Kui Yu, same pronunciation as Xiao, and his younger sister Kui Yu. They are both 17 years old this year. The Kui brothers and sisters are about the same age, and their faces are so similar to Nian's. They are probably the children of Nian's eldest brother whom they have never met. Hello, can you show me the sachet hanging on your waist? Shenyazi originally wanted to get in touch with the brother and sister, but when he got closer, he smelled the scent of the sachet on his sister's waist. Something was wrong, so he simply used the sachet as an entry point. Kui Yu was stunned for a moment, a little strange, but did not refuse. After all, Shenyazi had saved a person in their caravan just now. Shenyazi took the sachet she handed over, got closer and smelled it. His expression changed slightly, and he quickly put the sachet into the space. But it was too late. Three-eyed wolves are coming. Hurry! Get information, the person in charge of the alert shouted towards the side. Hearing this, the others quickly gathered together and formed a formation, holding weapons facing outwards. It can be seen that this is an experienced caravan, which is calm in the face of danger. Kui Ping called to Shen Yizi, "Miss Shen, come to the encirclement quickly, the three-eyed wolf is very fierce." Shen Yizi thought for a while and walked over. Kui Yu grabbed Kui Yu and followed closely. When the three-eyed wolves came around, there was a gasp from the crowd. Without him, the three-eyed wolf was too tall, almost as big as a cow. It had sharp teeth in its grin, and its eyes shone with greed and bloodthirsty light. Dozens of three-eyed wolves were approaching step by step, as if they were treating this group of people as delicious snacks. On a not far away, stood a larger three-eyed wolf, its third eye was open. This one is probably the king of this group of three-eyed wolves. Shen Yizi looked over. The three-eyed wolf king was very alert. He noticed it immediately and looked towards her. When Shen Yizi met the third eye, he couldn't help but feel a tremor in his heart. "Archers, prepare," Kui Ping ordered. The archers hiding behind the bunker had their strings fully drawn, staring closely at the wolves that were getting closer and closer. When the wolves came within shooting range, Kui Ping shouted, "Shoot!" Dozens of arrows shot out quickly, but only a few hit them. Even if it hits, it doesn't cause much damage to the three-eyed wolf. This made everyone's hearts sink. Logically speaking, the three-eyed wolf only comes out at night. It's not dark yet, so why is it out? Did you even find their caravan? Although everyone is confused, now that the three-eyed wolves are in front of them, they can only bite the bullet. It is impossible to run away. The several carts of goods brought here are worth a lot of money. How can they be willing to give up until the last moment? Furthermore, the three-eyed wolf has amazing speed and surprisingly good endurance. Once it is targeted, its fate is basically doomed. Instead of being caught up and dying in embarrassment in the end, it is better to fight to the death from the beginning, and maybe there is a glimmer of hope. The wolves were approaching and they couldn't use their bows and arrows. The strong men in the caravan rushed over with weapons in hand and roared. The three of them formed a small team and fought with the three-eyed wolf. Shen Yizi was standing with Kui Yu and Kui Yu. She glanced at the two of them. Her brother was still calm. He held the knife in his hand tightly and protected his sister behind him. The sister was so frightened that her face turned pale and her legs were weak. Shaking consciously, eyes wide open. Sometimes the more scared people are, the more they want to watch. The little girl had this mentality at this time. Shen Yizi asked for a pair of bows and arrows from the people in the caravan, put an armor-piercing charm on the arrows, and shot out an arrow with a whoosh. The arrow whizzed past like a meteor breaking through the moon, passing through the head of a three-eyed wolf. It still had enough power to stab into the belly of a three-eyed wolf, seriously injuring it. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked at first, and then felt great joy. Miss Shen's archery skills are amazing. With her here, they might be able to survive. Everyone has hope in their hearts and fights harder. Shen Yizi held up his bow and arrows to rob everyone. Wherever there was danger, he would shoot his arrows. In just a few minutes, 7 or 8 wolf carcasses lay on the ground. The Wolf King, who was still calm and composed at first, could no longer sit still. He roared to the sky and rushed over from the slope. He stared at Shen Yizi with 3 eyes and headed straight for her. Shen Yizi put away his bow and arrows, took out the Starbreaker hammer and took the initiative to meet him. When the three-eyed Wolf King rushed towards him, he made the hammer several times bigger with a thought and swung it with one hammer. At this moment, Kui Yu, who was watching from a distance, couldn't help holding her breath and staring closely. Just when Shen Yizi hit the Wolf King on the head with a hammer, Zhang Ling sent a message to her, "Be careful of the Wolf King's third eye, it can stop time for a moment." A moment is extremely short, but at certain moments, a moment can determine life or death. Seeing the Wolf King's third eye staring over, Shenyazi's consciousness suddenly turned into a sharp blade and pierced into the Wolf King's sea of consciousness, stirring it up like crazy. Ouch, the sea of consciousness was severely damaged, the Wolf King's skills were immediately suspended, and the hammer in Shenyazi's hand fell heavily. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 360. In an instant, the Wolf King's huge head was smashed to pieces like a watermelon, and his brains splattered all over Shenyazi's head and body. This was her first time fighting with the Star Hammer. She didn't expect it to be so powerful. Even though it's disgusting, it's also so cool. Crushing the enemy instantly, without giving them any chance to breathe, and kills them with one hammer blow. It's very miserable and violent, but she likes it. The Wolf King is dead, how can the remaining three-eyed wolves dare to stay? They all ran away with their tails between their legs. Everyone stood there with their weapons in hand, still in disbelief. Did they survive? Everyone cheered and looked at Shenyazi with eyes filled with gratitude. If it weren't for this Miss Shen, they would probably be in trouble today. But now, none of them are missing, they just suffered varying degrees of injuries. Kui Ping came over. Before he could say thank you, Shenyazi threw out a few bottles of medicine and said, "Take it and rub it on them." Next, everyone applied medicine to the injured, and those who cleaned the battlefield cleaned the battlefield. The dead three-eyed wolves were neatly processed, their fur was peeled off, and the edible parts were cut into pieces and packed. The useless parts were directly dug into pits and buried. To prevent the smell here from attracting any wild beasts, Kui Ping ordered some powder to cover up the smell and ordered the team to move forward for a while. Shenyazi took the opportunity to say goodbye. Kui Ping handed her a small cloth bag, which was originally a treasure bag for them to carry goods. Seeing that Shenyazi was leaving, he immediately took out the goods inside and put the processed wolf skins and wolf meat into it. "Miss Shen, you have saved so many people in our caravan, and we have nothing to repay you for, so just accept this treasure bag. As for the wolf skin inside, she was the one who killed it and it should be hers." Shenyazi only took away the skin of the Wolf King, and took a part of the wolf meat, and handed the rest back. "That's enough." Without waiting for Kui Ping to say anything, she turned around and disappeared from his sight in a few steps. But before leaving, she left Little Frog to protect them for a while and come back when they reached their destination. There are a pair of nieces and nephews from Nian Nian in the team, so nothing can happen to them. While the people in the caravan were busy cleaning the battlefield, Shenyazi took the opportunity to chat with the brother and sister for a while, and learned that one of them was called Lu Li and the other was Lu Yu. It is different from the names of Nianyan's nephew and niece in the information. But she remembered that Kui Shijian's wife's surname was Lu, and Kui Yu's nickname was Ali, and Kui Yu's nickname was Yuer. Lu Li must be Kui Ying's pseudonym when traveling. He uses his mother's surname plus his own nickname. The same goes for Kui Yu. So, she has basically confirmed the identities of the two people. Just waiting to test it with the fate testing talisman. Lu Li was injured during the battle, and she took the opportunity to get his blood while treating his wound. Shenyazi returned to the invisible sky boat, and two things were thrown towards her. A transparent bottle, a flower pot. "Here, I got the leeches and devil's weed you asked for," Zhang Lingch said. A group of grass-green leeches were crawling in the bottle, which made people's skin crawl. In the flower pot is a Amidavilia plant. Contrary to its frightening reputation, the Amidavilia plant is quite graceful, and it can be used as an ornamental plant. This was something Shenyazi sent to Zhang Lingch earlier and asked him to help get it. "Thank you, master." "What do you want these two things for?" Zhang Lingch fiddled with the stems and leaves of the Amidavilia with some disgust. With his strength, a single ambrosia plant cannot pose any threat to him. Just like at this moment, even though the Amidavilia coveted him, it didn't dare to make any small moves. Diambreme is a plant that is very good at seeking benefits and avoiding harm. I just feel a little curious, let's study it, maybe it can develop some effects. Everything in this world has two sides. Maybe the Amityville and leeches, which are feared by the world, actually have unknown effects. Shen Yizi collected these two things into space. Zhang Lingch asked, "It's already dark today, when will we have dinner?" On the way here, Shen Yizi prepared delicious food for 3 meals a day. Zhang Lingch had become a foodie, and the gluttons in his stomach started to get louder at mealtime. Shen Yizi smiled and went to prepare dinner. "You just harvested a 3-eyed wolf king, let's try the wolf meat." She had previously hunted a gale wolf in Qingmang Mountain, but its meat was a bit woody and not very tasty. She cooked it once and threw the rest of the meat to Yi Chang. "Anyway, the more he eats, the stronger he becomes. I wonder how the wolves on the prairie taste like." Shen Yizi took out all the wolf meat and piled 3 large pots, 1 meter deep. Swish, swipe, swipe. Once the purification technique was thrown over, a layer of black and oily impurities appeared in the basin, which was the dirt hidden deep in the flesh and bone marrow of the wolf. Unless they are the kind of spiritual beasts that grow up by eating spiritual food and drinking spiritual dew, impurities are indispensable in the bodies of ordinary monsters. Purification techniques cannot completely remove the impurities in wolf meat, but by treating it in this way, it can at least greatly reduce the impurities in it and make it taste better. She planned to fry, roast, stew, and braise all these wolf meats. Zhang Lingch also rolled up his sleeves to help. Qingbao and the other 3 came to join in the fun, and Shen Yizi simply threw them a piece of wolf meat the size of a basin and let them go aside to do whatever they wanted. Even with the ever-burning cauldron, Shen Yizi spent 2 hours cooking all the wolf meat. Put the cooked meat directly into a large basin and place it on the ground. The braised wolf meat looks oily and red in stew, which creates a great visual temptation. Use a small steel fork to poke small holes into the barbecued wolf meat. The salty ones are smeared with fermented bean curd juice, black bean sauce, and hot sauce, while the sweet ones are smeared with spiritual honey produced in the space. Layer after layer, they are during the roasting process, the flavor of the sauce has already penetrated into the texture. Moreover, pine and cypress branches are used for barbecue, and a handful of pine nuts and pine cones are added from time to time, so the barbecue is permeated with a fresh pine aroma. Take a bite, the skin is crispy and the meat is tender, and the juice inside bursts out. It is so hot that your tongue trembles, but you are reluctant to spit it out. The fried meat is still sizzling with oil, and the pepper sprinkled on top mixes with the meat flavor, exuding a powerful aroma. 5 people, a snake and a bird sat on the ground around several large pots of meat, grabbing them with their hands, eating meat, and drinking wine. Of course, the 3 Qingbaos drank fruit juice. Seeing that they were curious about the wine, Shen Yi dipped his chopsticks into the wine and gave them a taste. It was so spicy that they stuck out their tongues. She quickly captured this cute scene with quick eyes and hands.